The PLS grant is still based on 2016 populations, which were put out by Municipal Affairs way back then.
Okay.
So it's based on a count of 6,782.
Okay. So to clarify, moving forward, your billing is based on 6782 or 7,024?
7,024 according to the master agreement.
Okay.
The last few years have seen additional provincial support. In 2016, Peace Library System began receiving a provincial grant to extend services to Indigenous communities. Each year, we've been working with libraries to add programs and services to attract Indigenous patrons or make other patrons aware of Indigenous culture. And we're working with some of them on outreach to specific Indigenous communities. And in fact, today I just had a conversation with Kendra about bringing in one of our Indigenous liaison workers from High Prairie to see if she can work some Indigenous programming together to offer here. Other than that, our revenue consists of school contracts and a few other miscellaneous sources. So system expenditures. Council may be interested to know how that money is spent. So I provided a chart to illustrate that. Most of the expenditures translate into services for libraries and area residents. Less than a quarter of our revenue is spent on headquarters operations, administration activities, board governance, and the like. So we'll start with library collections, which is the one on the right, 40%, and I believe it's medium blue. So by far, the biggest expenditure is on library collections, and this involves the funds sent in by library boards or municipalities that are put into ordering accounts for libraries. It includes all the activities necessary to order, catalog, process, deliver those materials so that they're shelf ready, as well as some special and expensive types of materials, such as large print books, audiobook blocks, and such, that we lend out to libraries. About half of our staff make these services happen. The benefit of that is the centralized services are efficient and they save money overall. When we can order from the suppliers in bulk, we of course get a nice discount that libraries ordering for themselves would not get. And libraries can get the help in building their collections to suit the needs of their own communities. Next on the bottom is IT services. I believe that's in red. Automation and IT support is an important area in this age of technology. We've automated libraries on the same software. We've connected them province-wide to other libraries, and we provide support for that circulation software for computers, wireless equipment, the SuperNet equipment, and the connection. We provide internet services and website support to most libraries, and this support all happens locally by trained individuals at PLS headquarters. And again, sharing all of those supports and services make things cost effective. Libraries don't need to hire their own tech support. We've got one or two on call at the headquarters at all times. And this way libraries are able to keep up with current technology and expand their services to meet their patron needs. Training and programs in green, that's at about the 7 o'clock on that chart. Consultation and training. Library managers and boards need someone that they can call, and they call people in all departments. They also have a consultant specifically assigned to them to assist with all areas of library management. Our consultants also offer various kinds of training, including in-person and online training for digital resources and devices. We plan an exceptional conference, and they help the library develop their own programs. And through these services, libraries are not alone. They can keep up with the latest library initiatives, they can keep things running smoothly, and they've always got someone to call if they need ideas or help or just to bounce thoughts around. At about the 8 o'clock is resource sharing, and that's 4%. Library systems connect libraries so that they can share their resources. That's what we do, we share. In 2020, while most libraries were closed to visitors, member libraries loaned 141,365 items to other libraries, and they borrowed 227,937 from other libraries. They can borrow from all types of libraries, public, college, university, and pick these items up right here in their own local library. Patrons are also looking for online or electronic resources, and we've been building those up over the last several years. We've added apps so people can download ebooks and other resources onto their own devices. And additionally, we've created an app for the library catalog called the TrackPack app, which means that you can manage your library account from your device wherever you happen to be. Sharing means that libraries don't have to have it all, but can rely on the interlibrary loan system. Patrons have access to almost the entire provincial print collection, and also to more and more ebooks and other e-resources. There's something for everyone. And because they're a member of Peace Library system, they can also take their local library card to almost any public library in the province and borrow books, DVDs, CDs while they're away from home. Or they can take a special card from TAL, from the Alberta Library, and that lets you borrow from academic resources from colleges and universities. And last but not least, operations and administration, which is around the 10 o'clock position. Operations and administration are the activities, they're the foundation of support for many of the other services. It includes the building, the office and administrative costs, board expenses. However, many of our services take place outside of our headquarters building in Grand Prairie, and many people are on the road at various times, like me. Lastly, the chart shows expenditures for Indigenous services and miscellaneous expenses such as transfer payments. So the bottom line is that when you send your funds in each year, your library and your residents are getting good value in return. And the services we provide are designed specifically for our region. We keep in contact with libraries regarding where they most need support, and we plan our services accordingly. And then if you look on our webpage, you will find our latest plan of service, which is something that we have to develop for the government at least every 2 years. We go on an every 3-year basis that says what we intend to accomplish in the next 3 years and how we're going to offer these services to the libraries and so that they can offer their services to the patrons. And lastly, I would like to thank you for your support for libraries and your contribution to regional library services. Your membership has made a difference to library services in this area and across the region. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to meet with you today. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. I think you've got this down to how much information you can plug in 10 minutes or less.
There's a lot to talk about, and I'm lucky that I'm a fast talker.
Okay. So I'll start by thanking Louisa for coming today. So I will say, one of the things that, added to the list of things I was naive about before I got on council was my impression of libraries. And I can tell you over the last decade of being on council, my impression of libraries has changed substantially.
Better, I hope.
For the better, absolutely. And so, the amount of use that our library gets, and Councillor McGregor used to be the representative there, and lots of reporting on the usage, the diversity and variety in programming that is available, the innovative pieces that they bring to the library and programming that comes through there. Even the toy library is a prime example that to say, what else can we do? What other programming can we provide? And it becomes this connection space for the community for a lot of people there to go. And so I think it's a fantastic resource. I understand the benefits of being with the Peace Library system because, if there's anything we learn in rural Alberta, it's about leverage. And realistically, that's what the Peace Library system does for us. It provides leverage to resources, it provides leverage to programming, and provides leverage to support and funding that we can just accomplish more together than we could on our own. So I understand those pieces. And so I want to say thanks for everything that you do, and I'm excited to see it continue. Understanding the math, though, so one of the pieces that I want to say, so $6.37 per capita, is that the same request as last year?
Yes.
Okay, so the only thing that we can expect differently moving forward in 2022 is a difference in the amount of people that you're charging for.
In the population, yes. And
the reason that you're changing this now is because our interpretation of the master agreement changed, or just, I'm curious.
No, the change in population happens every year. We bill on the latest numbers available from the province.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the province is not keeping up. So they're up until 2016, they were raising the grant, not much, but a little bit every year. And they were also keeping up with the population changes. In 2016, that grant froze, and so did the population numbers. So while they're still funding us on a 2016 population, our master agreement with all of our communities say that the membership billing will be based on the latest figures available from the government. And in 2020, municipal affairs went from going with the actual population counts to deferring to Treasury Board and Finance's population estimates.
So even if our federal census is lower than that number, we take the estimated Alberta number versus the one that was actually calculated?
According to the master agreement, yes. If that were to change, we would have to open the master agreement and renegotiate it. And if Treasury Board or if Municipal Affairs continues to use those estimated numbers, I can see where there would be a case to do that.
And so is the master agreement between you and the province or between you and us?
It's between PLS and all the member municipalities.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with the province and it's between us.
That master agreement, yes, is between us. We just happen to depend on those numbers from the government.
Okay. Okay. I understand.
Okay.
Okay.
It's convoluted, I know.
No, I question that math there a little bit, but I understand what you're saying. So it'll be up to the board members it would be up to the board to renegotiate if they felt that was a misuse of those numbers or they didn't feel those numbers were fair, to say, hey, I want to approach it and change my master agreement. Or the master agreement is the same for every municipality, or they're individual? Master
agreement is the same for every municipality, yes. Okay. If that master agreement were to change, it would change for every municipality.
Okay. Okay. But working out the quick math, the actual math on this is about $1,541.54. So it's not substantial. Okay. That was all I had to say. Sorry, any other questions, comments from council? Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of echo what Tyler said. I'm being new to the library board in this situation here. I didn't realize, the wide breadth of services offered and just how much support that you guys do give to our local library. So it's very much appreciated. I know in terms of IT support and those types of things, it's very crucial for them. So I'm happy to see this presentation again, because I'm catching a few other little things and there's a lot to learn, but I really appreciate the support you guys give and for coming down, taking the time to fill everyone in on it as well. So thank you, Louisa.
Okay. Any last questions or comments from council? As I see none, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for hearing.
Okay, we'll just jump into the rest of our council meeting. And so next we have minutes on page 31 of our package from special meeting council on November 30th. Councillor Gromluck.
Make a motion to accept the minutes from the 30th as presented.
Any discussion? All the question, those in favor? That is carried. Next, we have the minutes from December 7th in our package on page 32. Councillor Brandel.
On page 37, motion 43221, there's no councillor name on it.
On page 37, 43321.
43221, second one from the top.
The council moves Councillor Hughes.
Okay.
Okay.
And while you're at it, motion 432-21, koinonia, it says koina in there. So
yes, that's spelled right. Yeah.
Okay, spelling. Okay. Any other discussion? Sorry, motion to accept them as amended. Thank you, Councillor Brandel. Any discussion? Sorry, Councillor Adams. No. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. We'll jump into page 38 in our package, which is a special meeting of council on December 13th. Sorry, Councillor Hughes.
Motion to accept the minutes of the special meeting on December 13th.
As presented.
As presented. Yes, thank you.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. And then we've got December 14th on page 40. Our package, lots of these special meetings from budget that we've been digging into deeply already. Councillor Ferguson.
Motion to accept the special meeting of council minutes from December 14th as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Last we have minutes of December 14th Committee of the Whole. Which actually, you know what? We don't. Dun, 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 dun. Oops. Motion to defer adoption of the Committee of the Whole meeting of council December 14th to the next council meeting. Thank you, Councillor Giroux. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Let's jump into reports. Page 87 in our package, interim operating budget. Roland.
Here in this report is the 2022 interim operating budget. Budget discussions are on operating budget, where the lights are paid and operational. I was prepared an interim operating budget that should cover expenses for the next 3 to 4 months.
Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? Councillor Brendel.
I'll make a motion that be it resolved that council approves the 2022 interim operating budget as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Jump into the next one, which is the Aqua Electric franchise agreement.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. So this report just to talk about the ATCO franchise agreement, which was a current agreement was entered into in 2007 for 15 years, which means it's coming up for renewal in July. We need to give 6 months notice if we wish to extend the current agreement. And according to the agreement, we can extend it by an additional 5 years. So basically the agreement allows us to collect franchise fees up to 20%. Our current franchise fee rate is 10.1%. If we go beyond the 20%, of course, we just need permission from the Alberta Energy and Utilities Board to do that. Our franchise fees generate approximately 1.4 million in fees payable to the town of Slave Lake, and in turn, it allows ATCO to use our property, road right-of-ways, and other properties as listed in the agreement for their infrastructure for servicing our community. The franchise agreement also talks about streetlights, and while it explains invested and non-invested streetlight rates, it doesn't actually establish the rates themselves. Those are set through another process. And then it also has some other clauses in the agreement that specifically talk about, things such as if ATCO needs to do emergency repairs, or if they're building in new services that they need to have drawings back to the town, and those types of operational issues. So ultimately, the franchise fee rates are not set by this agreement. This agreement allows us to set rates, and those have to be done before December 1st of each year. If we miss that December 1st date, we can still set them, but there's a substantial time lag in terms of being able to set up the processing of those. So for example, if we were to set them in January, they may not actually come into effect till May or June type of thing. So really our options are to renew the current agreement for an additional 5 years. We can try to negotiate a new agreement, although administration doesn't see any reasons or any issues or concerns with the existing agreement. Or if we allow the agreement to expire, there would be other legal considerations that we would have to look at further. Like I said, this does not set the rate. This just allows us to have the franchise agreements in place and allows ATCO to have their infrastructure on our property, essentially. So that our recommendation is to renew the agreement for the next 5 years.
Okay. Discussion from council, questions? Councillor Adams.
A couple of quick questions. I guess first one would be, you were saying we have to decide this by December? Package, it's saying January 20.
So the agreement expires July 23rd, 2022. We have to give 6 months notice. I apologize, I missed that in my report. We have to give them 6 months notice if we want to renew the agreement. So that is January 23rd.
So we have until January. Okay.
Okay, so we don't have to make a decision today.
We do not, but the documentation has to be signed by January 23rd.
Okay. Okay. Other questions? Councillor Adams, keep going.
No, keep going. All right. This is one that I kind of struggle with trying to wrap my head around. Have we managed to determine how much this impacts each individual or how the taxpayer is affected? Both, I understand we're taking into account this franchise fee on people who don't necessarily pay tax, but we're also having the same fee go across the wide spectrum of value we have in our land base or in our assessment. Have we managed to come up with any numbers or some sort of reflection that we can measure what it means?
We don't at this point in time.
Thanks.
Okay. So providing some background, council has had some initial discussion around franchise fees during our budget deliberations. And so largely this comes from the fact that we charge a franchise fee for ATCO to distribute power and gas in our community. And so basically that tax we collect offsets the cost of operating within the municipality. And so I want to say off the top of my head, it was 1.1 or $1.4 million that we collect because of this franchise fee. Residents would see this right on their power and gas bills when it comes across. And the question comes down to philosophically, is that the right way to do it, or do you just collect it straight from taxes? And so in previous, there is an advantage to doing a franchise fee in the sense that there is a group of organizations that exist within our community that don't pay any taxes but still get levels of service. Many of these come from provincial buildings, institutions, educational institutions. And so all these things are tax exempt within your community. And so right now the way it works is that, obviously when we go to collect taxes, it's based on assessment. So people pay different amounts of taxes based on the different value of assessed value that exists on their property, but some properties are exempt. And so franchise fees in one argument would provide more equality across the spectrum because everybody is getting taxed now instead of the ones instead of omitting these ones that are tax exempt. The negative, though, to that whole philosophy would be in the tax system that is currently created by law under the municipal government, under the provincial government under the Municipal Government Act, dictates that people pay different amounts of taxes based on the assessed value of their land. And so the argument then, or the debate comes around the fact that that's not how it works. Then in the franchise piece, everyone's paying equally based on usage and not based on their assessed value of their land. And so should we change that? And that's an interesting debate that continues to go and on behind the scenes, largely because of how do you end up funding it. So it's part of the larger budget discussion that if we were to abolish all those franchise fees right off the bat, realistically, we still either have to cut $1.4 million worth of services or generate it some other way. And so because that is going on through some of the budget discussions already, and some of it we tasked administration to come back and really look at those numbers and see what the impact is, it might be pertinent to table this. We have some more meetings coming up with budget early on in the new year. And so I would suggest that we table this to the January 11th meeting and have some discussion about it then when we have some more background on the impact to budget and taxpayers. That being said, is there any additional points that council would like administration to try and bring forward for some of those budget discussions before that happens? As I'm hearing none, realistically, all we're looking for is how much of that franchise fee would be tax exempt by moving it to tax base instead. Correct? Councillor Adams.
I guess does it bear, I don't know how much more work it is, but math wise, would you be able to just even do a scenario in the other direction as well? I mean, if I'm asking for one direction, why not go the other? So increasing from 10.1% to 20, how does that impact us? Additional revenue and how it will impact our tax base and reduce taxes and how that implicates.
Yeah, I'll make sure that
Just,
Essentially, we
I figure
figure
why
out what
not get
1%
both?
is worth, right? If we added 1%, what does that actually generate in tax revenue?
Yeah, I think off the top of my head, I believe the electric side was like $90,000 per 1%, but I'll have to go back and.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Ferguson.
When was our franchise fee rate bylaw expected to come to council?
We can review that without usually the agreement's reviewed in November if we want to change it or whatnot. So
Okay.
I'll reach out to ATCO. I don't know where that email is. So.
Okay, sounds good.
Councillor Adams.
just one more quick question. Since we're talking about the electric, when does the gas one come up if we're on contracts?
I would have to look into that further. My apologies.
But does it kind of go the same route? The same
They have
structure?
different dates. They certainly have different dates.
But process is the same.
Process is the
Yeah,
same.
okay.
Just the dates are
Thank you.
different on the agreements.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to table this decision until the January 11th meeting. Moved by Councillor Adams.
I'll make that motion.
Any discussion on the motion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, jumping back to my agenda. We have a closed session coming up. Before that, I'm going to do Mayor's Corner real quick. So point of information for council, the Alberta North Central Alliance, I've talked about that we were going through a process there where we applied to SETI, an FCM for a special project in the hopes of being accepted as a group to provide part of their pilot project for funding and support. We were notified early this morning or late last night, I can't remember now, that we were not accepted. So unfortunate, but they mentioned that they did have a number of applicants and they did provide some other supports and resources there from their previous experience that are encouraged to use. So we'll see where that one goes. Also got an invitation from West Fraser for myself and Reef Carrick met with basically the general manager of the pulp mill as well as the Alberta Plywood, the veneer side, and we had about an hour-long discussion out there at Silver Lake Pulp today. And so the pieces where I give them some feedback on our recent meeting was with ministers and some of the concerns that we took forward and the messaging that we heard. I let them know of our feedback and application to the Alberta Utilities Commission in regards to the ASO framework piece in regards to electricity and how that would have an impact on our community. Additionally, I talked about some of our priorities and the fact that it was important to the town to see growth and support businesses and support jobs, and but also to how we could cohesively work together more with industry. And so I said that one of our priorities that we've been talking about and through budget and our strategic planning is around branding and retention and attracting people, and saying that if we want to be strategic, we can work more closely with industry to utilize some of those things. So we've created resources, example, in our websites or our videos that promote the community and so on and so forth. Could they put links to some of that stuff? Our tourism pieces that are going on, could they put some links even in their advertising when they're trying to attract people for a job to say, this is Slave Lake, click on here and see what's going on. We also talked about the communication can go both ways. And so one of the things was they made some announcements this afternoon about approximately $10,000 that West Fraser and their staff committed to putting back into the community. And I'm sure that they did that, but I don't want to say anything and toot their own horn yet in case something happened. But my point is that when they have those things and forestry and industry is celebrating those things that are going on, send that information back to us. We would love to, toot that horn for the whole community, because I think those are great things. I also talked about when you have an employer that has 100 or employees or more, we have things going on in our community, we have events going on or whatever else, can we send information that way for them to distribute? Because part of it, I think, is that we want their employees, they want their employees to grow roots in our community. They want them to stay. They want them to have a vested interest. And so some of the feedback that we always hear is that, there's nothing to do. I don't know what's going on. Maybe their family members or their spouses aren't getting out into the community. If there's an opportunity to simply start to gain a little more traction just by sending a email to all the staff to say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what we're doing. There's a lot of little quick wins that could come out of there. So they talked about ongoing communication because part of this was driven by our previous discussions with them about how do we have ongoing communication and how do we have a relationship. And so I encouraged them to meet with our economic development team. And so right now we've engaged a contractor that's helping us with some of that. We intend to be looking for positions in come January here to fill with our municipal staff in those positions, connecting with someone within their organization to share that information and get a pulse on what's going on, both from our side and strategically what we're working on, as well as from their side, things that they're trying to make happen. We want to hear about those things. Lastly, I talked about the fact that there's a lot of times too, when they have big announcements, things are happening. There are these multi-million-dollar projects. We find out about it afterwards. And I said we want to kind of find out on the front end. And I know that some of that stuff is proprietary, and there's some legal discussions and things that go on with that. But we want to help celebrate that and help advocate for some of the things that are going on. And I think sometimes industry has this feeling about let's wait and see where the current government, where they're going to go, and then maybe we'll take them a pitch. But I caution on the fact that I think sometimes there's an advantage to going and taking them a pitch and then seeing where they're going to go with it. And so that was kind of the message I took back as well. Like, if you've got projects, if you've got things that you're working on, please let us know. Let us find opportunities to advocate with you and for you on the front end and not on the back end. So overall, it was a good discussion, and I encourage them to work with our economic development department as we move forward to continue those lines of communication. I did say, though, too, that I think it would be advantageous to our council to go spend some time out and do some tour of these mills and understand how they work and how many people they employ and what goes on. And so I let them know that we had already talked about that internally and had our administration on the radar to reach out to the mills in the spring to line up some of those pieces as well. So they were excited to do that piece as well. Lastly, I will say that our last meeting for the end of 2021, I think back to our first meeting of 2021 and how different it is now. And so I will say that our council got elected here in the end of October. And to say that there has been a substantial workload thus far would be an understatement of epic proportions. So I just want to take a minute to thank administration and council members that I've been working with. I think it's a fantastic group. People are very dedicated. People are very diligent, and people are working hard for this community. And a lot of the people don't see it because our communication has been lacking a little bit. Well, there's a lot of orientation and discussion and things going on behind the scenes, strategic planning and budgeting, and we're meeting with ministers, and it has been a lot. So I remember the speech at the beginning, hang on there, you'll get a break coming up to Christmas. This is probably the first year in, I don't know how long, that we actually had 3 meetings in December. And it's a good thing we did. Our last one last week, we were here till 11 o'clock at night and deferring some of the discussions again till this night. I came in at 4 o'clock to start early, 3 hours before council, so we could get all the stuff done going into the holiday season. And, that only happens with the help of administration. But I just want to say, you guys are doing a fantastic job. Slive Lake is lucky to have you. And I hope everybody has a fantastic holiday season and a nice break because we've only started budget and we got a lot of work to do on that. And I've got some aggressive plans with strategic planning on taking some of the bubbles that we've had and really digging into them coming into January and February and March and defining them so that we resource them properly and we fund them properly. So enjoy the break and thanks for everything. With that, we have a number of closed session items to go into camera to discuss. And so Councillor Ferguson.
Motion to go into closed session.
Motion is on the floor. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. And we will go offline. We'll take 2 minutes here to get squared away. Roll, let me know when we're off.